Good morning. Except it's not morning. Okay, it's afternoon. But anyway, I'm so used to saying good morning. So today we're going to talk about aggression a little bit, and we're going to talk about, sources or things in the environment that can create aggression, and then we'll talk about things that influence aggression. Okay? So, given a start, what is aggression? Well, physical or verbal behavior intended to cause harm. Intention is a key, right? If you injure somebody by accident, it's not aggression. So it's pretty straightforward. Take a look. I love this graph underneath my head. 20th century humanity was the most educated and homicidal in history. Look at the graph. Holy moly. We have invented so many new ways of killing each other that it just skyrockets. But I'll leave that up to you to read this whole thing. But this is a really interesting story I pulled out of an evolutionary psychology textbook. And it describes some extreme aggression among chimpanzees. Aggression that seems to be no more than just like gang behavior, like adolescent gangs. Some of this just absolute violence for the sake of violence. I've seen certain videos, like I've seen one. I don't know if these are still common, but people used to post the knockout game, right? And the idea was a group of males would walk around, and then one male would just walk up to somebody that was walking down the street and just punch them in the face. And the idea is to make them pass out, knock them out in one punch. And then you post it and you laugh about it, okay? And it's just like, what the hell are people thinking? It's just a primal part of who we are. I mean, it's an inherited tendency for sure. Oh, it just goes counter to everything civilization stands for. So anyway, whatever. Different kinds of aggression. There's hostile aggression, which is emotions are running hot, right? Well, I guess that's emotional aggression. No, that's not duh. It's physical aggression with an emotional basis. Instrumental aggression, on the other hand, is aggression which serves some other purpose. Terrorism is a big example of this. But even certain attacks that are intended to rob you or something of that nature. So they're not, it's not emotionally based. It's just intended to get something they want. But of course, there is an emotional aggression as well, right? Aggression that whose intent is not to cause physical harm, but psychological harm. Sometimes relational aggression, and you know who plays the relational aggression game. Okay, I'm not going to make no stereotypes, but I think we have some ideas. So clearly, there's this idea that certain behaviors are instinctive, right? They're just inborn in us. And so some might say, boys, when they're growing up, they just are aggressive. I mean, they pick up a stick and they turn it into a gun, right? They punch each other in the arm and see who flinches first. All right, they play bloody knuckles and until I don't know. I've never understood why boys are stupid like they are. And some might say, you know what? They're just living an instinct, right? They're just doing what their genetics tells them to do. Well, yeah, I mean, as an adaptive strategy, aggression has really got something going for it. Um, it can help get resources. It's just like, okay, you're a caveman. Let's see. There's two things you can do today. You could either A, go out and hunt in the woods and maybe get a deer, maybe not, work really hard, or just wait at the end of the path until somebody else comes by with a deer, whack them in the head, and takes the deer. Boom. One's easier. It helps you procure resources, obviously creates defense, but also, it protects mating privileges, for a lack of a better word. Okay? And it is used often, in fact, in more evolutionary senses to deter infidelity, right? And so clearly we're talking about domestic violence on this kind of a thing. So, interesting thoughts. War and violence exist because of our inherited behavioral tendency. Okay? Absolutely, more aggressive males dominate less aggressive males, and more aggressive males have access to more mating opportunities. Um, it's pretty straightforward that if you've, in fact, I've actually even seen this in, it was a sociology study where they looked at the activity of adolescent male gangs. And what they did was they rank ordered them on aggressiveness and social dominance. And it was very clear that the more aggressive and socially dominant the male was, the more, I'm not making this up, mating opportunities they had with the females that hung around with the gang. Okay? So it's an interesting idea. Taking a look for people that don't have skills. Let's say, again, I go back to the deer example. It's not just, not everybody's a born hunter. And maybe this is how you get your resources. And so we still find this to some degree today, that some people are not born with the ability to get a college education, don't have these skills, but they still want a giant flat screen TV. They also want an iPhone. They also want all of these products, but they do not have, say, the cognitive mechanisms necessary to achieve a job, which might give them the resources to do so. Yeah, I kind of said that, but yeah, you can, if taking somebody else's resources is the benefit outweighs the cost of counterattack, go for it. Defend against attack. Yeah. What's an interesting idea is that aggression is often used to create social hierarchies. In the case of rats, what will happen is you take two rats, you put them in a cage together, and immediately they're going to fight. But within a couple of minutes, one will dominate the other. And now that this aggression has been used to create a dominance hierarchy, they never fight again. Okay? And the one that emerged victorious from this dominance fight will always be the one that, when food comes out, the dominant one goes and gets the food while it's fresh, and then the subordinate one sits back and waits. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Inflict cost on intersexual rivals. Absolutely. If you beat down your rival is less desirable to mate selection, right? So clearly you're making that. Negotiate status and power hierarchies, kind of like I just said with the rats, but clearly in many less westernized, I'll call it less westernized, less modernized perhaps, civilizations, it's quite clear that the most aggressive or strongest or toughest male will often rise to the top. Evolution can what am I saying? Aggression can also deter a rival from future aggression. And again, this is sort of like this idea that aggression is used as a form of protection. That is to say, sometimes in the animal kingdom, an emerging alpha male will aggressively attack another male for no particular reason. It doesn't look like any reason, except he's teaching a lesson. And the lesson is, you keep your place, or guess what I'll do next time. Okay? So this stuff aggression has been selected in many, many ways, but all of this stuff is almost exclusively a male kind of thing. Okay, it's really adaptive for males, and it's pretty straightforward because in almost all animal species, it is the male that has to establish territories to attract mates. It is the male that has to, even in the world of humans, it is the male that is supposed to. I'm sorry if it's a sexist statement. The male is supposed to have the resources to draw the woman in. I'm sorry, I know it's sexist, but it's still true, okay? And so what we find is that lower status men are more likely to be violent than higher status men and attempt to try to, fix the system or something. And as a fact, males, if they die a violent death, they have less to lose in the game of evolution, in the game of genetics, because as long as they've contributed their sperm, they did their job. Women, on the other hand, in the game of child rearing, they have to invest many, many, many years. So clearly males have much less to lose and much more to gain from aggression. But that's not to say that women aren't aggressive. Okay, younger men are more likely to be aggressive than older men, and that's again because younger men don't yet have a reputation, they don't yet have territory, whatever that territory, they don't yet have resources, something of this nature. In fact, this graph in the bottom left corner here shows you deaths per million based on age for males and females. And we can see a huge spike in the 20s here in rate of death in males. And I mean, clearly you see what's happening here is, aggression and war and everything else. And so the best predictor of willingness of a country to go to war is how many males do you have between 15 and 29? I mean, what a crazy deal is that? Okay. Aggression can be, evolutionary, but you know what? It can be neurological. There is absolutely certain places in the brain. Here, Philip Bard removed both hemispheres of an experimental cat, and they exhibited all the characteristics of being extremely angry, even though there was nothing to trigger it. It's possible to have tumors, and this can happen with human beings. A tumor can grow in the brain and press on areas of the hypothalamus and trigger this sham rage, okay? And so it's just an extreme form of anger that has it's just anger for the sake of anger, okay? Anger without a target is what? I mean, I don't know what to call it, right? Clearly, one of the biggest influences on aggression is genetics, okay? Not just a shared genetic ancestry as an evolution, but a selective pressure for aggression, okay? So animals can be bred for passiveness and aggressiveness. And, this is definitely one of my preaching moments. Do I have a problem with certain kinds of dogs? And I mean, it's just, you can't, I know nature versus nurture, but some animals, just nature has been beat into them so strongly, it's impossible. And it's a shame, but it's true. But on the positive side, animals can be bred for tameness too. In Russia, there was this couple of scientists. They were studying foxes, and they just didn't have enough money, and they needed to find a way to come up with some funding to study these, conservation of foxes. And so they realized that in any population of foxes, think evolution, there's some variability. Some foxes are more, aggressive, and some are more tame. And so what you do is basically you select the tamest ones and you breed them. Chances are the pups will be, as a rule, more tame than the others were. And you do this generation after generation. You pick the tamest ones, the friendliest ones, over and over and over. And now in Russia, you can buy yourself a fox that's, at the pet store. It's just like a dog or a cat. It just comes up, licks you in the face, the whole deal. Other kind of influences, alcohol, absolutely. It's like when the cops are called for domestic violence, there's an 80% chance that liquor's involved. I mean, maybe that number's a little off, but I can't remember. I've seen the number, and it was very, very high. Alcohol reduces self-awareness. Alcohol impacts the frontal lobes, which, for a lack of a better word, is sort of the frontal lobes allow us to understand long-term consequences of actions. And so if you're feeling frustrated and you don't have the ability to comprehend long-term consequences, and the only thing that you can comprehend is it feels good right now, and somebody gets in your face and frustrates you, punch them in the face feels really good right now. All right? And that's what we've got here. Testosterone, oh my goodness, males that have higher levels of testosterone have higher levels of aggression. That's a correlation. I'm not going to say testosterone causes aggression, but it's a pretty powerful correlation. You know what? In fact, in rats, they can prove this in an experimental sense, because you take some rats and you measure how aggressive they are, right? Male rats. And then you snip their nuts, right? Sorry, boys. Snip their nuts, and now no more testosterone. And guess what? The rat's aggression levels just plunge. Then you give them injections of artificial testosterone, and their aggression goes back up. So up, down, depending on whether or not they've had their testosterone. Well, frustration, as I already said, the frustration aggression theory is the theory that frustration is the thing that can trigger aggression. Frustration triggers aggression. In fact, here's my image. Okay, there's frustration. There's some goal you'd like to accomplish, and something gets in the way of you accomplishing the goal. Okay? So, is there another way to go and get that goal? Oh, I see. Another response. You could just withdraw. But look, the frustration creates an instigation to aggress. Then all of a sudden, you can have two forms of aggression, inward or outward. Okay? An inward aggression would be either, well, suicide seems pretty extreme, but I mean, cutting might be. But even aggression such as talking badly about oneself or something. And then the outward aggression can be either direct or displaced. And of course, direct aggression is to attack that thing that is causing the frustration. Now, unfortunately, there's lots of cases that we'll talk about where the source of the frustration is not a tangible thing that can be touched, and so the aggression gets displaced. Okay, I think we had in the last topic that it was as the price of cotton in the South was low, lynchings were high. I believe that's what it was, a relationship there, and it was this idea that the source of the frustration was low cotton prices. And you can't attack the price of cotton. That doesn't even make sense. And so the aggression or frustration turns into aggression that is displaced to another source. Road rage. Oh, this is terrible. I even put a disclaimer here for you. The following slide contains preachy opinions which may not be popular in Texas. Pennsylvania teen dies after being shot in head. Significant number of homicides are absolutely unintended. My biggest fear, I living in Texas, I'm not afraid of somebody buying a gun, planning out a campus shooting or something like that. No. I'm worried about people that had no intention in any way, shape, or form of I'm using this gun to, protect my fellow citizens or something. And they had perfectly good intentions until some frustration happens, like road rage. And boom, road rage with a gun is a hell of a lot bigger problem than road rage without a gun. All right. And so clearly it is this that scares the living shnight out of me. So kind of just a little sort of a step back almost, but I want to show this is Robert Plutchik's idea, and he thinks that all emotional reactions are one emotional reaction, that all emotions blend together. Okay, so we're hangry, right? Because we're hungry, we get angry. Well, this is an interesting idea. In particular, if you look over on the far left part of this little flower petal thing, you see that annoyance, anger, and rage are really just versions of each other, and they blend together. And so annoyance is the frustration that creates the rage, okay? And so I like this theory, by the way. It's a very useful idea. Aggression as a response to frustration. Yeah, one incredibly large source of frustration, poverty. It sucks to be poor, right? And so what happens is that if we feel that we are less well off than others around us, or in particular, we're working just as hard as them, and we're not getting our stuff. And so it turns out that crime is not necessarily high in poor places. Crime tends to be high in places where there's a large disparity between rich and poor. So you look at some of those countries that have the highest inequality, and the largest inequality, in fact, is not the United States. It is, you might have thought it was. No, it's South Africa, as far as I know. And so what happens is in South Africa, I'm sorry, if you're rich, you live in gated communities, except these gates are like actually great big giant walls with armed security guards, okay? Because the rate of violent crime is very high because the people that are poor are very, very frustrated. I like this Karl Marx thing, not just because he's a communist, but a house may be large or small as long as the surrounding houses are equally small. It satisfied all social demands for a dwelling. but let a place arise beside the little house, and it shrinks from a little house into a hut. Okay? And that's actually pretty powerful. I had this one when I was undergraduate. I was living in these townhouses. And as a poor college student, these were pretty damn good townhouses, okay? It's pretty sweet. But they were built in the 1880s or something like that. And what happened is they were built for the lumber mill workers. All right, there was a lumber mill. We were just off of the Fox River, and so the lumber mill was a couple of blocks away, and the workers lived there. And so now the owner of the lumber mill decides he's going to build a mansion right here on the top of a hill, overlooking the mill, overlooking the river, and everything else. So he puts all this money into this mansion, and it's almost complete. And the workers tell him, if you sleep even one night in that house, we're burning it to the ground, okay? So stay out, all right? And so clearly they were frustrated how much the owner had, how little they had, and they let him know exactly how they felt. Aggression as a learned social behavior. Yeah, I mean, learning theory, we talk about rewards and punishments, and yeah, we learn that aggression is often pays. We watch the bully, and the bully uses aggression, and the bully gets what he wants, and ta-da! Okay? Aggressive professional hockey players tend to score more goals. So look at that. The aggression pays off. And obviously the largest study involved in this was Albert Bandura's studies. Well, there was a series of studies, by the way. Let me see. I've got to remind myself which slides I've got here. Sorry, I should have known. Yeah, what else? Yeah, okay. So in Bandura's studies, what he did was he brought children into his laboratory, and he showed them a video. And in this video, what he did, what there was a video of a woman, and there's this Bobo doll. This Bobo doll, it's an inflatable doll. The bottom is full of sand, and so it's intended for children to punch it, and it falls down, it comes back up. Boom, 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 boom. Okay? So in the video, they have this woman, and look at in the top left image there, she's punching it in the face, and she's saying very specific things. She says like, pow, sock him in the nose, or something like that. Then look at the second frame there, she's throwing it. The third frame, she's hitting it in the head with a hammer. Lovely. And in the fourth one, she's kicking it. Okay? And again, using specific words. Now, children are brought into this laboratory. They watch this video, and then they're brought into a room full of toys. And these are nice toys. Okay? And they're in there for like a minute. And then they come in and go, oh, I'm sorry. We have to save these toys for some other children. All right? You have to go to this room. And it's full of shit toys, like fake food or something like that. But a Bobo doll, right? A Bobo doll. And so lo and behold, the kids, they've been frustrated. They watched this aggression, and they proceeded. Well, it turned out that he actually did a lot of different versions of this study. Okay? Number one, children imitate aggressive behavior that they witness. That's a fact. Boys demonstrate more physical aggression. Boys and girls were similar in verbal aggression. So the verbal aggression that the woman stated. Okay? He did lots of versions. In fact, sometimes it was a male and sometimes it was a female in the video. And so boys imitated males and girls imitated females more. If the model was actually physically present, there was more aggression imitated than if she wasn't, or if they were on the video. And so then he did another set of studies. And what he did was, at the end of the video where the woman beats the doll up, then the woman is either rewarded or punished at the end. And so these are the actual scripts, all right? This is crazy stuff. For children in the model rewarded condition, a second adult appeared with an abundant supply of candies and soft drinks. He informed the model that he was a strong champion, that his superb, aggressive performance clearly deserved a generous treat. This is straight from the lit. I didn't make this up. This is copy and paste. And so the model was either rewarded or punished. Now, the children have witnessed aggression and have witnessed it being rewarded or punished. And so we can see what we got here. Okay? This is the amount of aggressive behavior exhibited by boys and girls if they watch the model get rewarded or if they watch them get punished. And so if children are not just watching aggression, but watching that it gets rewarded, okay, like with the hockey players, then guess what? They're going to reward it, okay? They're going to copy it, imitate it. This is actually a scary one. This is a true story. There was a father, he loved watching wrestling on his TV with his son. Well, that is to say, the father loved wrestling. And the son learned pretty quickly, if you want to spend time with dad, you gotta get there while he's doing wrestling, and dad would cuddle up with son. It was great. Okay, so then what happens is the boy began imitating what he saw on TV, right? Because he saw, dad is interested. Dad applauds for the wrestlers on TV, right? So the kid starts doing things like body slamming his teddy bear and stuff, and that's, oh boy, let's give him, yay, good job, son. Now, what happens is that we find that the principles of learning tell us that behavior that is learned in one context or will generalize to other contexts, will generalize to other situations, and lo and behold, what do you think happens when the kid went off to kindergarten? Okay? And that's putting that kid in such a position because I guarantee you teachers talk. And so that kid goes into kindergarten and is aggressive. Even if that kid gets it under control, by the time he's in first grade, his teachers already labeled him. Okay? And it's just a never-ending story. So models for aggression can come from the home, the media, outside influences, of course. Um, if parents use violence as a form of discipline, so in other words, your child does something and you get frustrated, so you smack the kid, and the kid's like, mom was frustrated. She smacked me. Aha! So when I'm frustrated, the appropriate behavioral response is to smack somebody, right? I don't know. This is a problem. Okay. So we find another problem is this notion. Tit for tat is the idea that, and tit for tat is a very common idea in social cooperation work. That is, if today I'll give you something, tomorrow you give me something. Okay, and this is how human cooperative behavior tends to emerge. Today I give you $1, tomorrow you give me $1. Right? That's tit for tat. But unfortunately, what happens on the negative side is if I give you, one, I don't know, 1 unit of pain or something, you give me back 2 units. Okay. Now that I've gotten 2 back, I say that was not a justified response. I will give you back 4. Okay. And you're going to say that wasn't a justified response. I give you 8. And so tit for tat is a wonderful thing that can allow for social cooperation when we're talking positive rewards, but when we're talking aggression and negative rewards, bad stuff, then all of a sudden this notion of tit for tat collapses. All right, that's what I got for this shot. I was talking about consequences of aggression or something like that. Figure it out when I get there.